Welcome back to the Triple J Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Rasmussen, and I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Coach Jay Flores, assistant coach at the University of Montana. Jay is a standout high school player at Jesuit High School, although he and I will debate till the end of time who had a greater career at Jesuit, also my alma mater. An MVP in the CC2A conference during his career at Chico State, as well as the catalyst to the first NCAA tournament berth and first conference championship, among many other notable accolades in his career. He played for many of the coaches that have already been guests here and had a brief pro career before launching into his coaching career. And it's exciting to be able to bring Jay on. He's much like Amir, someone who I had a chance to coach and to not only be able to have a small impact on, and I'm humbled by anything that that we talk about during our episode related to that, but somebody who inspired me and really reminded me what it is that makes sports special, to see somebody with his abilities get the most out of them and to realize his dreams and to have an element of humility and gratitude and competitive spirit that he now shares with the college athletes and young men that he coaches at Montana today. Very cool. Excited to welcome Jay to the show. Excited to watch his coaching career unfold. Happy to see the success he's having in his life. The husband and father and raising his own children is like a crazy look back at different points of my life. So very excited to welcome Jay to the show. Grateful he took the time to jump on, and hope you all enjoy the conversations with Coach Jay Flores, assistant at University of Montana. And without further ado, hope you enjoy. Welcome back to the Triple J Sports Podcast. I'm here with today's guest, Jay Flores, coach out at University of Montana with the Grizz, heading into year 10. Lucky number 10 for the Rasmussen family here. But Jay, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, number you and I both wore number 10 at Jesuit. Pretty special. That's
right, man. It's got to be a good year for you guys. It's got to be a good year. I still think I wore it better. But
I would agree in terms of I'm paid money now to recruit good players, and you were much better. You would have been recruited at Montana much more than I would have. I can't deny that.
You guys did some damage in your years, though. But well, let's jump right in, man. So you're like me, a Sacramento product. Grew up and attended Jesuit. Did big things at Jesuit, and kind of took off on your both collegiate and professional career, headed into coaching starting here. So why don't you tell us maybe a little bit about kind of your childhood upbringing, what got you into basketball, what kind of made you the kind of all in, hardworking, grinding kind of athlete that you became?
That's a good question. I think I always enjoyed sports. My dad scouted professional baseball for almost 40 years. He was great. He never put like a lot of pressure on me to play baseball. I just think he wanted me to play sports and compete, I remember in fourth grade, I watched Trajan Langdon on TV at Duke, and that's kind of like when I fell in love with basketball. And I kind of said at that point, like, this is where I like what I want to do. Like, there was just something special that sparked it. And then she probably would laugh, but my older sister, she was 5 years older than me. She was a pretty good basketball and soccer player in high school, and she always needed somebody to play with her out in the front yard. So every day we used to go out there, and usually ended up with me losing and running inside crying. But I want to say that's like where I kind of like had the basketball spark grow. And then, it progressed to Jesuit, and then luckily beyond. And I am so grateful every day that I get to be around basketball for a living.
Yeah, that's a good lesson early on, is learning how to lose and how do you channel the disappointment of losing, and what do you do with it to work at. Having big signals is never the worst thing in the world for it. When you made the move and got started at Jesuit, did you know right then and there, early on that college basketball at that point, like you said with Trajan Langdon, was what you wanted to do, and what was your journey like at Jesuit to ultimately accomplish that next step of getting to play on in college?
Well, I'll start off with saying I actually remember we were kind of talking about it before we got started here. I remember watching the teams that you played on and like it was just such high level basketball because that was kind of when I was in like sixth grade, seventh grade, like in that time period when you played on some really special teams and you'd go to those games and it was, I mean, you said it right before we started, like the walls would sweat in some of the playoff games and there was just an intensity that, like this thing is layered, right? Like you can't get to Duke in fifth grade, sixth grade. And so that kind of became my goal of like, oh, I wanna be a high school player and this seemed fun. Now, I mentioned that my dad was in professional sports, and I think that one of the greatest gifts he ever gave me is he was very realistic with me. My mom and him were both big time supporters and cheerleaders for me, but I think he always knew what it looked like and kind of what I looked like, so to speak, and not, I don't think it matched at Duke, and so it kind of just became about being the best I could be. But when I got to Jesuit in 2003, I played soccer, baseball, and basketball, and then it kind of just dwindled to baseball and basketball. And then after my sophomore year, I got to play varsity, and we were just okay. But I was very like I got my feet wet, of like high level basketball. And I kind of just said, okay, well, like if this is what I want to do, I'm not good right now and I need to get a lot better. And so that was, I would say, kind of my sophomore year is when the spark really went off of like, I need to work more. You said my game was not super pleasant for the eyes, so to speak, like yours was with that 6'7" lefty stroke. Like I did not check a lot of those boxes. And so I think knowing the game and like understanding how to impact winning without putting the ball through the basket kind of became my thing. And I started to work really hard during my time at Jesuit. And I was so fortunate to play with guys who were very good. We didn't have anybody ended up playing Division I, but we had Chris Blees, who was All-American 3 years at Claremont McKenna. Rod Hawkins, I was lucky enough to play with at Chico State. And then we had other guys that complemented how I played in terms of trying to run the team and be a leader on the court very well, which allowed us to have a lot of success. And those years at Jesuit, basketball-wise, were some of the greatest of my life. We played on some really successful teams, and I was just really fortunate to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, you set that the standard early on with winning, and it's funny you mentioned like we were talking before the show. I mean, I think watching those that come before you at programs does create the inspiration, and I wonder a little of kind of the way the game is consumed today. It's changed so much, but I grew up watching my dad referee, watching Ben Ammerman and Chris Griffin and Isaac Fontaine and JJ Polk and kind of on and on at Jesuit as well before getting to play there, and then kind of the aspiration to be successful in that environment certainly is, like you said, the steps. Your work ethic, though, that you bring to it is something that sounds like a product of everything from the influence of your dad to your own kind of self-awareness, and it's something that obviously winning comes with. You guys did a lot of winning while you were at Jesuit. You and I reconnected in your stint. You initially made the decision to go play at Sonoma State before joining Chico, and in order to do that, you had like you said, overachieved, really started to excel in those areas that maybe on paper you wouldn't jump out, whether it's athletically. During that process, though, where you were working in high school and you were developing the winning and progressing, how did that come to fruition? How did you end up initially getting to Sonoma State? How did the recruiting experience go? What was that first couple of years like before we dive into the time at Chico?
It was awesome. And, I ended up not staying at Sonoma, but I think it was a really powerful year for me. Um, Playing on the team at Jesuit, I just so badly wanted to continue playing playing basketball. And obviously the next step was college. And I had a couple guys on my team that were getting recruited. James Edwards, Chris Blees, Rod Hawkins, and I didn't have much going. And which rightfully so. Like when I go back, I have a couple like old DVDs of some of the bigger games that we've played in. Um, I think I contributed to winning, but like the basic necessities of standing out to play in a college program weren't really there. You know what I mean? Other than like the teams I would on would win a lot. And so Coach Lawrence at Jesuit, he was a teacher and a coach. He coached me one of my sophomore year. He knew one of the coaches, Rich Haywitz, at Sonoma State, and because I was really getting recruited by junior colleges, a couple of Division threes, and he said, "Hey, we have a guy here that I think you guys should look at." Coach Haywitz very kindly was like, "Yeah, why don't you bring him up to play open gym with the guys?" And I went up there and did, and they were great about it. And they kind of said, "Yeah, well, you could come here and walk on." And so I did. And then one of the players, my summer going into my freshman year, became ineligible. And so it kind of changed like you plan on certain guys being around and a spot like like they needed a guard, so to speak. And I was able to kind of follow directions and do what the coaches said, and ended up playing my freshman year. And like I said, once the season ended, I was looking for something a little bit different. So there was no transfer portal or anything. I ended up getting in touch with Coach Clink at Chico because he just got the job, and then was able to play there.
Yeah, but that starting point, another similar experience, getting into college, kind of getting your foot in the door, getting your feet wet, and also building the confidence that like I can play at this level. I'm sure has the kind of impact that allows you to then start looking for that opportunity. Obviously, you had a tremendous amount of success at Chico State, and I think something that connected us in the time. You not only did a lot of winning, but had tremendous individual success. Personally, never seen anyone work harder or more consistently at their game than I was able to see you in that time, and certainly leads easy kind of A to B connection of how you ended up in coaching from there. But let's talk a little bit about Chico. So you got to play for a probably an all-time great man and coach in Greg Clink. You got to play for teammate, friend, buddy Gus Argenal, and your experience over there was one of lots of W's, but you were a part of that build as well. So talk a little bit about your initial years at Chico State, and then we'll kind of talk about the titles and the championships as we get going.
I think it was one of the greatest things that could have happened to me for a lot of reasons, ending up at Chico. Because I transferred in conference, there was a rule back in the day that you had to sit out. And that redshirt year for me, and I say it to everybody, times have changed a little bit now, but redshirting is one of the best things you ever could do if you love basketball. And, you talk about my work ethic. I think I worked pretty hard. I loved being in the gym. Like I never looked at it as like, oh, I have to go work out. Now, the staff at Chico and probably my teammates would tell you I probably could use a little more time in the weight room. Didn't love the weight room. Probably 155 pounds soaking wet, but I loved going into the gym. I loved working on my game. I loved like the process of getting better and basically just pouring into commitment into the process. And that redshirt year, specifically after I got a taste of how good the players were in the CCAA, and a lot of just like the continuous work is due to the fact that I was like, man, I need to get a lot better. And then after I experienced playing against some of those guys and not having a lot of success, I was like, I need to get a lot better. And luckily, Chico had Justin Arginol, who still holds records in the CCAA today, playing point guard. So I got a year to just work on my game, just get stronger, just learn the system, be around Coach Clink and the staff, Coach Arginal. And they really poured into me. And I think that is one of the biggest things I look for in recruiting now, that I was just like really hungry to learn stuff and knew that I didn't know a lot of stuff to start off with. And the level, we had extra workouts every single day individually, which speaks a lot to Coach Clink and the staff that they poured into guys that were not playing in the games for them at the time. A lot of times, a lot of your energy is just focused on the guys that go, that check in. Right. And it helped me more than I ever could imagine. And I still have a lot of my best friends to this day are guys that I redshirted with, because like we were going through a tough schedule, so to speak. And I felt like after that redshirt year, and now when I got there, we were not very good. Like Chico, I left Sonoma and we didn't have a great record. I got to Chico and we were very good. And it was just really about buying in, working as much as you can, like being the most connected group, because Coach Clink is a tremendous leader in that aspect. And after my redshirt year, I remember our first exhibition game was against Nevada, and they had Armand Johnson and Luke Babbitt and guys that played in the NBA. And I remember went out there and I was like, I've gotten better, now, Armand Johnson literally was hitting pull-up jumpers in my face nonstop. But I remember like walking off the floor being like, okay, like I'm not as bad as I used to be. And that kind of, once the level comes down from NBA players to CCAA, I had some success. Now I was not what I wanted to be yet, but I got a lot better. And I think that kind of year off was so vital to my success. And we, got above 500 my second year. I redshirted my sophomore year. And then that third year of college, we were, I want to say like 16 and 13 or something like that. And then kind of took another step back because we didn't have the element of surprise for a lot of the league. And I think we finished like right at 500 my junior year going into my senior year. And every turn was just, and this is a huge credit to Coach Clink and the staff. And I was just so fortunate to find a place that aligned with investment. You know what I mean? Like putting your time in. And I continued to get better and better. And then, I was grateful that you came on staff with Coach Cobb and Coach Clink going into my senior year. And then, we were able to have a lot more success that last season.
Yeah, that's perfect segue into, I was fortunate enough to, get an opportunity to come in heading into your senior year. And I remember, talking with Gus and with Coach Clink about, the talent and the potential to be competitive. I would imagine, I don't think that they thought we would be as good as we were either. I think that, there's the possibility and the belief, but until you see it happen, there is, there's always that little bit of, what do you call conservative expectations. But for me to come in and see you and, heard about your work ethic, heard about the, the roster and the opportunity, but, not to be, in any way kind of understated was the example and the leadership that you guys, had in you at that point, evolving in a program, getting those little moments of confidence, I think are huge steps for any athlete, right? Where you find yourself realizing this isn't as hard, or that you're more comfortable in an environment than you used to be. And you can, feel yourself relaxing and starting to think the game more freely, as opposed to, kind of playing on the defense. That big leap, was pretty evident that first year I was there, your senior year. And, Coach Clink, Coach Cobb, the development, all those things kind of came to fruition. So for you, that ended up being a year that not only did we have a lot of team success, but you as an individual, took a massive leap forward and taking, individual honors. So let's talk a little bit about that year for you, for the team, kind of the foundation that had been laid, and what it was like to start to see the belief that others had shown in you, the work that others had poured into you, and your own work start to come, to fruition in the form of winning and, individual accolades.
Yeah, for sure. I was definitely a product of my environment. And, one of the things I probably never said to you, especially now that I have children, I have a six-year-old and a 4-year-old, I would make you wake up. I remember, I think we shot at like 6 in the morning or something like that. And you had a infant at home. So like my understanding and appreciation of what you did for me grow 100 times once I had my son. Because like you're not sleeping much at night, and then here you have this guy who doesn't make that many shots up to this point in his career, being like, "Hey, please meet me at the gym at 6." I can imagine your level of fatigue, because I would get to go home and nap. You would just start your day and then be dad when you got home. But I think, and you say a lot of individual success, and I say this to our players all the time here at Montana. Someone will start saying something, and I'll jokingly talk smack back to them, and then someone will say, "Oh, well, he was MVP of the CCAA," and then we've had a couple of Division II guys and like, "Wait, what? What did you average?" And I was like, "Well, you're not going to believe me when I tell you this, but I averaged 9 points and 4 assists." And so I think what you say all that of like people pouring into you. To me, we made the jump because we had a group of pretty special guys. In terms of our belief and investment, and then the return on that from the coaching staff, when we did not, I did not produce a lot in terms of like what good players produce, but I think that my investment level was such, one of the greatest compliments that Coach Clink ever gave me was he said, "I feel like you want to win as badly as I want to win." That's what he used to say to me when I would like meet in his office. And I remember being a 22-year-old being like, "Yeah, no kidding. Like, what are you talking about?" Like,
Stating the obvious here.
yeah, right.
All right.
And now as a coach, and the number of hours that go into preparing to have success, and like how it's a all-consuming job, it means a lot to me that he used to say that. And I think that was kind of the accumulation. And then we started to get, all of the guys that I redshirted with, we got better, but our investment, like we were willing to die for the program. And then we started to bring in some really talented players, like the recruiting efforts of the staff kind of had paid off, started to pay off at that time. And you say about like, kind of like the game slowing down and the confidence level. And it's something I try to explain to our players, that it is an accumulation of years and years and years of work and investment and time that allowed me to finally, my senior year, have moments where I was on the floor and felt very confident. A lot of times before that, it was just like trying to figure it out, compete as hard as I can to help the program how I could. But I was just really lucky that the program valued work and investment. And I got to the point where my skills, I always say, like, I like to use numbers with our players. And I was like, an average all conference player back in the day was probably an 8 or 9 talent level. And my talent level was probably a 6, maybe a 5. And it had taken the whole career up to that point to get where I was on, and I wouldn't say I was talented, but like where my investment level had matched them finally. And I felt that. And I think that especially the back half of conference, I remember going into games feeling like I could compete with anybody, in the level of investment that I had put in allowed me to feel that way, and I like going up, I was like, there's no one that has watched more film, that has spent more time working on the game. And then, when you got there, like I felt like I tried to double down. Like I was waking up, I wanted no one to be shooting before me or longer than me or watching more film, like all of those things. And, I actually, it's kind of funny. I read quite a bit now, and I'm reading, I just finished yesterday, actually. I read it again, The Alchemist, and it talks about like personal legend. I don't know if you've ever read the book, but essentially it's like all of the things that happen to you throughout your career, or throughout, whatever your whatever dream you chase, the good things and the bad things, it's all part of it. Like it has to happen. And so I think like some of the setbacks or negatives, so to speak, over those first couple of years, like people would look at redshirting, like it's the best thing. Like if I didn't do it, none of that stuff would happen. And so I just think like I was so fortunate to align with Coach Clink's vision and the people that we were around. I felt empowered and comfortable and safe in the program when a lot of coaches probably would have just tried to find another guy who can make more baskets. So I was very fortunate, and like I said, I'm grateful to all the people there that invested in my individual development, like you and like the rest of the staff, that allowed me to have the success. And honestly, like the life that I have, I attribute a lot to Chico State. I found my wife the first day of school, and I work with Coach Cobb here, and he coached me there. I worked for Coach Arginal. Like a lot of the best things in my life have come from Chico State. And I always like to tell guys, like, if you work as hard as you can and you're unselfish, like a lot of times things work out. And that I've been like very much a product of that in my life, both in basketball and outside of basketball.
That's such a great point too, in terms of the relationships at the time. I mean, everybody talks about what they miss most after they stop playing, and we all love to compete, but it's the locker room and the relationships and the time you spend that kind of change you for life, right? And you can fall back in when you haven't seen somebody for 10 years. But you mentioned Coach Cobb and Coach Clink, and I'd like to talk a lot about the effect that coaches have on us as individuals as we're growing, and to me, obviously, we share a lot of similarities in our background, right? Both from where we grew up, where we went to high school, who we played for. The interesting thing from the perspective that I got to observe your career and have a small part in your senior year is your commitment to making winning plays, which is, I think, a thing that kids and athletes doesn't always get talked about enough in the day and age with skill, kind of skill development, and which is, winning plays are, a lot of times they're the small plays that don't show up in the stat sheet. They're, not a part of, any highlight reel, and they certainly aren't the thing that you see, every night on the, at 7 p.m. when tip-off starts. They're the things you do at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. They're the things you do talking to your teammates. And the foundation of the culture was certainly something that was set with Coach Clink and Coach Arginal early on. What were some of the things between, pick either one of those guys that stood out to you the most about what made Chico special for you? What, from a culture perspective, which is, unfortunately, it's a word that gets used so much, it's sometimes kind of overused, but what was the kind of defining thing to you that or some defining things that jumped out in your opportunity to play for Coach Clink and for Coach Arginal?
Couple of things. Number one is the communication within the program, right? Like Coach Clink is an elite communicator. Part of being a leader is you have to have a vision of like what you want your organization to look like, and then your ability to be able to communicate it to the employees or members of your organization, and then hold them to that standard. And so I think I look back, and there were times that he would, like, the conversations that him and Coach Arginal and Coach Cobb and you, that everything is aligned. The alignment in the vision and communication was the biggest thing that I took away. And it's from how you practice to how we travel to, there was a standard that he had of what it took to get to where he wanted to go. And I thought he did a fantastic job communicating it. That would be number one. Number two, I thought his pride in the university. He always used to say, Coach K at Duke feels the exact same way about Duke as I do about Chico State. And I think the guys, myself, and my teammates really felt that, right? And so when you have someone that knows what it looks like, that cares a lot about it, and that you feel like cares about you, those things are the most powerful. There's what is it, 9 ways to say, or 100 ways to skin a cat, whatever the saying is. And I say this, and I don't know I've been graduated for a long time. I don't know like what my stats or percentages or whatever was, right? I could tell you this, they were not good. But because he said, hey guys, this is about winning, like this is about you helping our program raise to the next level, I fit. You know what I mean? And so like that is the main thing that sticks out to me in the sense of the communication that someone has and then their ability to frequently reinforce it. He was as good as anybody that I've been around.
I would agree. His consistency in staying the course. I've said this a few times, but I played for him at a time when I was at UC Davis, and I would definitely say we were a very up and down program in terms of highs and lows. He was always a steady hand in the program for me. But seeing him as a head coach and working for him, I was taken aback, and it left a lasting impression on me. His ability to maintain a positive, optimistic, focus forward approach, regardless of the ups and downs, right? Wins, losses, poor performances. At times when I'm sure Coach Cobb can attest to this, where we come back, we have a bad practice, have a bad game. We're all frustrated, and we talk about it as a staff, but that message to you guys in the locker room was always very, very consistent, very, very positive, very, very confident around where we were going next. Definitely made an impact on me watching him and seeing that effect, especially how you guys responded to it when we lose the first night of a road trip, thinking maybe we're not going to bounce back, but that message got us back on track. Some of those kind of steady hand things that we all experienced and led to the second half. I mentioned this to him. We really went on a run the second half of the year. Really, it was the second half of the year where
we started off 3-2 in conference. I always remember that.
So as we were talking about the second half of your senior season and kind of the impact that specifically started to kind of snowball of the team and the confidence, a lot of the younger guys started to take, kind of not only huge strides in terms of their play, but the confidence and the development. So that second half of the year really was where we found our foothold, and touching on kind of Coach Clink's consistency, the work ethic, the leadership, kind of all of that starting to come, full circle. Talk a little bit about that second half of the year for you, kind of what that, not only meant to you, taught you, and what that experience was like kind of to wrap your college career.
Yeah, well, one of the things that you kind of said about Coach Clink that stuck with me and us is, like, when I say us, I mean my teammates, like, it never seemed like he felt like he had all the answers. You know what I mean? Like, he was like very humble, and I don't know how he was behind closed doors in like meetings with you guys, but I always felt like he would show up, and it was a collaborative effort. Like, I'm like, it's not just like my way or the highway in certain areas, So I thought, like you said, we start off, and I remember this, we start off 3-2 in conference. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is not how I wanted my senior year to go. But I think that just because of the investment level and the belief, like, we had some wins that season that were just like, is this even real? Like, how this happened? It allowed us, and I do think there was, like, just kind of how you said, to have success for our team. There was a couple specific games I remember, like, we went to Humboldt State right before Christmas time, and we won at Humboldt State, which was like a huge deal. And kind of down the stretch, we won at San Bernardino, which we hadn't really done. I just felt like everybody, coaches, players included, once we started to get our footing a little bit, like you said, there was just a, like, okay, like, why can't we do this? You know what I mean? Like, why? And I would assume that Coach Clink would agree that the timeline of from when he took over the job to what we did that year, I think we were picked like 7th or 8th. I don't remember, in the conference. it got to the point where like the belief was really high. And I think that's a direct result of you guys as leaders and just continuously pouring positive energy into us when probably logical people probably would not, and so it got to the point where I think some of us older guys, like me and my roommates, the guys I lived with, felt like, all right, like we're as good as any of these teams after we had a couple of those wins. And, one thing leads to another, and we're playing for a championship on my senior night. Like it truly is. It was like a movie for me, like it was so amazing, the experience. And it was just because I felt like we had guys that were selfless, that were about the right things. And we had some good younger players that helped influx and, kind of raise the talent level up for us. And it all kind of accumulated to us winning the regular season and then playing the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that perspective as you're sharing it for sure hits home on, Coach Clink's humility and kind of his approach to things for sure as a leader, his consistency, and then investing in the development of all the young guys. I mean, if you look at the development from, from Amir and, progression with even, not necessarily in the younger stage, but Jason Conrad and Jordan Semple, and just kind of the progression of those young guys along with you and DeMario and all that leadership, the progression is kind of a collection of all those things, and the consistency of doing from a cultural perspective what it is that stays true to your identity produces consistent results, through the ups and downs of a season. And, I've shared this story a few times, but, for me, the fond memories are, certainly watching you and DeMario and Amir and some of the guys that I spent a lot of time, in the gym with, watching you guys execute in games what we were working on in the gym, with no one around in the mornings, and the progression of that becoming a part of what fueled the success, and then the ability to adapt to all different types of games, are the kinds of things that I think shape not only us as athletes and coaches, but as men growing forward, as adults, as fathers. When you look back at that season and the confidence that resulted in, you win MVP of the conference, like you said, and you affected winning. You made huge shots. The amount of time you put in the gym led to you making huge shots, making winning plays, and turning that into a season that kind of set the foundation of where Chico basically held at, from the time we hit that mark, moving forward, then propelled you into not only the career you're in today, but gave you an opportunity to go play professionally as well, which I'm sure was checking another box on your childhood dreams. So talk a little about your opportunity to go, take the fruits of your labor and go and actually, check the box of being able to play professionally in your career.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of before I jump into that, your commentary kind of sparked one of the things that really stands out about Coach Clink and about you guys in general is, and I think it's a powerful lesson. It's one that I still need to get better at as a coach, but I think it applies to a lot of different walks of life. Is there were times I played really bad, like that I did not, my senior year, I did not. I think there was like a time, I don't remember specifically, but it seemed like it was like a 4-game stretch where I shot like 20% from 3, or it might've been, I don't know, something like that. And there were times Coach Clink would call me in after I played bad, and I would sit in the office with you guys as staff and be like, hey, like, you're our guy, like, we're going to rock with you. You know what I mean? And I think it applies, to parenting, to business, to whatever. It's really easy to believe in people and give them confidence when they're good. And I think like it stuck with me a lot more to when I was like, I suck right now and I am killing us. And these guys still like, and these guys still believe in me and they still rock with me. And I think it made me want to run through a wall for the program. You know what I mean? I think that's what allowed me to have the success that I had, is the belief that you guys as a staff had in me. But I was so fortunate to, and it's kind of funny. You said you talk about professional basketball. I didn't really know that like overseas or non-NBA was a thing until I got into high school. Like I worked out with a guy, I remember when I was a freshman, that said he just got done playing a year in England. And I was like, what? Like, how does that, like, what does that even mean? So then I started like research things and whatever. And, I found out, that once you can get passports if you have ancestors born in specific countries, whatever. So I was not getting recruited to play high school or to play college basketball. And I would run around and I would say, I'm going to play in the Mexican NBA. Like that's what I would tell my parents at dinner. And
I love
it's just funny, like the universe conspires, to help you out. And so after I finished, I still remember I didn't want to take my jersey off at Chico when we lost at Western Washington. And I was like, that might be it for me, And then even though I knew that like I wanted to try to keep going, but I was like, people are like, oh, well, you were MVP. I was like, yeah, I averaged 9 points a game. Like I was not good, like in terms of what a professional scout would be looking for, But luckily my grandparents were born in Mexico, and I got connected with guys, and I signed a contract to play in Mexicali the year after I graduated. And I played with some amazing players there. It was such a awesome experience for me. I ended up getting to play quite a bit as a rookie, and we won a lot. Like we had a 17-game win streak, and there were times that I would come out of the game and, these guys, like these high major players would be in the game, and I'd turn to my team and I was like, was I playing in this game? Like it didn't seem like it matched up with, but like it goes back to like, I just did what I was told and picked up 94 feet, even though I wasn't a bad defensive player, and passed the ball to the guys who needed to pass the ball and shot when I was wide open. And it was really like an amazing experience. And, I was torn on whether I wanted to go back and do it, but I knew I always wanted to get into coaching. And Coach Arginal from Chico at that point, he was at Rice, and he got the head coaching job at Cal State East Bay and offered me $5,000 to be his second assistant coach. And my now wife, then girlfriend, I was away from her for a while, and I knew I was never going to make a lot of money playing basketball. Like you look at the players I was playing against, like my salary was not going to go up a lot. So I kind of just was like, I think this is the right time for me to kind of start and see what I got in coaching. And it turned out to be like an amazing segue, like kind of transition for me.
Absolutely. A difficult decision to make at any point, right? When you finally kind of make the all right, I'm hanging it up. It never feels like it's slow enough. It always kind of feels sudden, or maybe you don't necessarily know it's going to be done until it's already transpired and happened. So, I feel like it's the harshness of sports, right? Is that it just kind of comes to an end in some way, even if you still hang around. But getting to coach and stay with it, you were wired to be a leader, and you touched on something that I think is important, which is, external belief, right? I think all of us, no matter what we're doing, external belief is a huge part of helping to create the internal belief. And, I think great coaches understand the difference between coaching hard, surrounding work ethic, attention to detail, all the things that are effort and focus based, and don't mix that up for coaching in ways that strip people of confidence, because the most successful people have tremendous amounts of confidence, irrational levels of confidence in themselves, and it starts externally. So as a coach, and with the impact and effect of all different types, we all become a product of all those that coached us and influenced us. What would you describe yourself as in terms of as a coach today, and maybe from the beginning of your career to now, in terms of your style and your overall viewpoints on how you can affect kids as a coach and as a leader in their lives?
Yeah, and it's interesting, Phil, that like you say it, like I probably need to be better in that aspect of like like the belief, it's hard to separate, right? Especially because I was not as talented of a player as some of the players that I coached. So some of them would probably say that I, don't, yeah, like in terms of just giving them like, I was like, ooh, I don't want to shoot any bad shot, things like that. It has been a interesting and constant learning process for me still in year 13. But you say what kind of coach? I would say, to kind of sum it up, it's just relationship driven. It's kind of what I learned at Chico, and I think as I've gotten older, your role or way that you build the relationship has still changed a little bit, in the sense of like how hard I'll coach guys. Or when I was a young buck, a lot of it was just like trying to be as positive as I can and leave like the challenging of players to other people. So when now I kind of am, I don't want to think old, although my hairline might disagree with me. I think that I now like challenge guys a little bit more, and it's out of like love and like achieving, like their highest point of whatever that is on and off the court. But I would say it's all relationship driven. Like my favorite thing is when guys text me after they're gone and, fill me in. And I try to stay in touch with guys that I played with or played for. I say it to everybody, like every single player I recruit is my pitch is pretty simple. I had a lot of success and was able to play professional and won championships, all those things. The best thing I have from Chico State, other than like my wife, that she's number one, but yes, is the group chat I have with all my buddies. Like, like Amir and Amir Caraway, Rashad Parker, Demario Sims, Spencer Moyer, Terrence Pelham, like all those guys are in a group chat. Terrence Pelham gets married next Friday. We have 8 guys meeting at a restaurant the night before. You know what I mean? Like, to me, I try to recruit guys to, it's my dream that they have a group chat like I have a group chat. Like it's worth more than NIL dollars that I would have made, whatever. And that is kind of like my driving force. Like when I say like what kind of coach I am. Now, there are times that I recruit guys that need me to play a different role than just like a cheerleader or, like a positive reinforcement guy. I need to like challenge them. But I also think that, and it's one of the things I learned from you, I learned from Coach Cobb, I learned from Coach Clink and Coach Arsenal, is like consistency is a huge piece to relationship building, right? Like I need to show up for them on a daily basis, whether it's in the gym, whether it's meeting with them academically. And there are some guys that probably don't understand it at the time of like why I challenge them. But I would hope that a lot of the players that I've been lucky enough to coach would say that I really like loved and cared for them, and it was a little bit tougher love than probably what they wanted. But like I was like, if I said I was going to do something, I followed through with it. And to me, like that is how you, there was a lot of power in you showing up every day for me at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't even understand like the baby aspect of it at the time. But like you say, like, sometimes life happens and you go a couple years and we don't hear from each other, but like you hit me up and we fall right back in because of the investment you made. And so that's really how I try to, that had like such a tremendous impact on me as a player, because I was just so hungry to try to get better that I really try to take that aspect to how I am an assistant coach and how I show up for the guys on a daily basis.
That's a huge point. And the beauty of coaching, right, is that you're both getting a return on it. Me getting up and going to the gym with you in the morning was as rewarding as anything, and getting to be for someone else what impacted me is the part of the thing that I think that's beautiful in sports, right? I mean, I was fortunate enough and only had a year of it, but to get John Welch during my freshman year at Fresno State, we were up same thing in the morning every day, sometimes dragging my tail in there because I'd gone out and had too much fun the night before, but in there just kicking my tail every morning and appreciating that he was there to work with me and help me get better and challenge me that one, you're worth the effort, right, is a big thing that I think athletes want to see. But also as a coach, to be able to see guys progress, that's super rewarding.
Sure.
To see the progression. I know same thing, Amir and I catch up from time to time and watching him progress throughout the course of that year and help him contribute to your senior season being as successful. Those are like special bonds that you form. And I think the point you just made, Jay, that I think is really interesting is guys do like being challenged. You all want to be challenged, but you want it to come from someone that you know cares about your best interest, right? That they want you to succeed. And it's a very different dynamic than when you're getting called out by, someone that you don't believe has your best interest at heart. And
For sure.
that's
I think,
the relationship development piece that you refer to.
PJ Fleck at Minnesota always says, how do you spell love is TIME, right? Like if you're showing up for the guys and then you challenge them, they respond a lot better to it just because they know that it's coming from a place of like love, of where it's not just help me win as many games as I can. Like, no, like I'm showing up for you. So you need to try to do this for sure.
Absolutely. And I think for myself over the years, even from the time that we were together, and I've progressively learned that it's ultra important to communicate why you're calling out, why you're challenging someone, and to remind them, hey, this is the goal that we've described for you, that you personally stated for yourself, and that I'm doing you a disservice if I don't challenge you towards that. So no, everything that I'm saying is for the goal of you reaching this point, right? This skill level, this playing time, this success in your career, whatever it is. And I think this generation, maybe more so than ever, benefits from understanding this is why you're doing it. I know there was a lot of times in my career I didn't get told why I was getting called out. I was just getting called out. So I think it does help a lot. And I always take from our time together the lessons, and it's a big part of why I like having these conversations is how do we hold ourselves to a standard that challenges our leadership ability and our commitment as individuals. Now, like you said, you're a father, and you're on a day-to-day basis. You're making decisions and influencing lives when you go to work and when you come home, and all those things carry forward with you. So, as you look at kind of all those lessons and you become kind of a product of those things, you start to develop your own style, and then that evolves. So, my question for you today, as a 13 years in, and what would you tell yourself going back to the first year, kind of your playing career? What would you tell yourself if you were back coaching yourself today, and early in your coaching career? Anything that you would give advice as far as how to go about your business for your younger self?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. Off the top of my head, I think part of the reason I had a lot of success is for me, and like the body and skill level that I had. I think that my mentality was pretty good, which is just like try as hard as you can and be selfless, right? I think if I could go back and give and honestly, both coaching and playing, like earlier in my playing career, I think like the confidence thing is a big thing. Like be more confident, believe that you should be there, because I think like those type of things, when I say those type of things, like when opportunities arise and like you have a little more confidence, as a young coach, like my first year with Coach Arginal, like I did stuff behind the scenes, but like in terms of having confidence in practice or trying to make an impact, you're just trying to like find your way. And I think like, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. When you are more confident and like, you're going to figure it out faster. And my dad would always talk to me when I was younger about just like competitive maturity, of just like understanding that like when it's time to like show up, like you got to believe that you can do it, whether you do it or you don't do it, like you got to believe you can do it. And I think sometimes as a player, and then, I'm starting to gain more confidence as a coach, but coaching is the same way, right? Like I think about, like, I try to think a lot like a head coach. If I ever took over a program right now, I have things in my mind that how I would want it to look and how I would want to run the program. But at the end of the day, like there'd probably be some imposter syndrome of like, ooh, do I really know how to do, those type of things. So I would say like that would be the biggest
piece of advice is just like, be as confident as you can be. And, we've kind of talked about it on the thing. When I became a senior, I believed in the work that I had done, when in reality, that is a big part of it. But I think like a lot of times what can separate people is their intent. Like what is your purpose for doing this? And if your intent is right, then like, you can't play perfect basketball. You can't be a perfect coach. Everyone's going to make mistakes. So like you can't worry or be hesitant in a lot of situations.
Yeah, that's a great kind of perspective and kind of reflection back. I think I would share the same thing, for myself, right? It's just avoiding the highs and the lows in certain respects, and maintaining a consistent form of confidence that is less results based and more process based. I think is a huge piece for all athletes to learn. Some people naturally have it. As a coach, I think it's a big part of where my focus on inspiring confidence has always been driven, is that, creating external confidence for your team, creating external confidence in your individual players helps to translate into internalized confidence. And, I think a lot of athletes do struggle with ups and downs of confidence.
For sure.
And I think Coach Clink did a great job with that at Chico. I don't think he ever, was someone who in any way took confidence from people. And I'll give you a funny story on your commentary on your own skill set. But you talk about your own performance and skill set and coaching and Coach Clink. I've talked on the show a few times about the experience of Cal State San Bernardino, and the success that we did have during your guys' tenure there, and us moving and going to zone, and Coach Clink and I having conversations about switching. A big part of that was watching you and DeMario and thinking that, at that time there was no chance we were going to guard those guys up top defensively, and saying,
I would agree with that.
I'm not going to put our guys in a bad position and ask them to go guard the ball with these guys that are, high level, athletes and ball handlers, and feeling very passionate about the idea that we needed to switch to a zone so that we could, excel in the areas.
We weren't just watching me chase my guy into the paint. Yeah,
I was watching it thinking, I just don't see DeMario and Jay staying in front of these guys. And man,
the scary thing is, Coach, is DeMario was way better at defense than I was. So if you felt that way about him, you're probably like, it's essentially like a cone out there.
We were watching going, but we felt like we were smart enough that we could adapt and install a zone in a week, and that's exactly what you guys did. You guys installed that. Coach Clink, to his credit, I've given him 1,000 times over just the way he responded, and we installed it. But I was as a coach feeling like I would do you a disservice to put you out on an island.
If I'm just getting racked over and over and over again, that wouldn't be the first time it's happened. 1-on-1,
but it's awesome, man. Well, it's fun to catch up with you. I know you're off doing a huge service to a lot of young athletes at the college level, and shaping their lives. Talk to me a little as we wrap here and head up. Talk to me a little about the college game today. How has it evolved in your mind since not only when you played, which is if you feel old, I feel like I'm 2 steps away from needing a cane and a walker, but even in the 13 years, I mean, obviously you mentioned NIL. I've talked about that a lot. Have a lot of perspectives on what NIL and the transfer portal's done to the ability to build a culture that really is similar to what we experienced together and in our careers. So what's your take on college basketball today, and how it's changed and what the future looks like?
It's definitely different, from when I played, from when I started coaching, all of those things. I try to never be the guy that's like, oh, like the good old days, or, there's a lot of money in college athletics. And so do the players deserve some of it? 100%. So like, the famous last words are, this is how we've always done it, right? Like I don't ever try to like take that mindset. At the same time though, my purpose of getting into college athletics was not to, I like competing, but it was not to make, a certain amount of money or do whatever. I like winning championships, but it was like the relationship based intention, and so the only real answer that I have is like try to keep doing it the way that I'd done it and pour into the guys and try to make them love the University of Montana. And, like we've had guys now that have come here, played really good for 1 year and then gone other places. And like, they've been good guys. Like we don't take bad human beings. So I wish them the best, I hope that we can continue to hold on to guys for multiple years. Cause I think like time is how you really build like strong relationships. But, I am trying to take the approach of like, if you can go do that and change your life going forward, I support you doing it, at the same time, like I'll try to like love and care for the guys as much as I can, the same way that I had before. And if we have 10 months together, if we have 5 years together, like it won't really change how I view them or how I want to coach them, because to me, it's why I do it. And once you start changing your mindset, that's when scary things start to happen. Like that's when you can become like really unhappy in certain aspects. And I have like an unbelievable job. So I've been here, I'm starting year 10 here at Montana. Like my boss has been amazing. I'm able to be a husband and a father like I want to be. And like, do the players stay shorter than what they used to when I first got here? Yeah, for the most part they do. But then like this past year, we had a couple of like my all-time favorite guys that had bounced around to 2 or 3 or 4 schools. And then we got them here and, they really bought in and the credit goes to them. And we had an unbelievable year. We won the championship, went to the NCAA tournament. And so, if you ask one of their other coaches about them, they probably have a completely different perspective than me. So like, that's why you just kind of, everyone shows up with a clean slate. Let's try to, make this thing special. And hopefully you feel a way about Montana that I feel about Chico State to this day, so it's changed, but I try to not to change my approach, even though, people would argue that, you can't really have relationships in this day. I'd say, everyone still needs love, right? Like regardless of whatever kind it is. So that's kind of just my approach to it. And, I could be stupid for it. I don't know, but only time will tell.
I 100% agree with you. I think regardless of how long you're interacting with someone, right? You can interact with someone for a day and have a lifelong impact on them if you are able to pour into them and give them something of value, and people can see that. And I think, as a coach, the opportunity to have an effect on somebody is actually the thing that kind of gets you up in the morning, right? Like, to hear that, getting up and shooting with you had an effect, right? That's why you do those things, right? You want to change, and help somebody get there. That's a part of it. I mean, we love to compete as athletes. We love to win, but those opportunities are huge. And I think it's cool to hear your perspective. I think in particular too, Jay, that, as a guy who is, could easily be said you've got the most out of your body, your physical attributes, definitely somebody who, carries, the Chico State Wildcat brand, through and through, and really put, Chico on the map in your senior year in so many ways. That can be hard to also be around an environment with guys that aren't working as hard, right? That aren't putting that in and to try to instill on the opportunity. So as you bring in guys, for a year or you get to work with them for multiple years, what do you tend to kind of gravitate towards as far as your commentary when work ethic and kind of maybe drive, overall time in the gym is something that you see as a need for a kid that you've got in the program? You're
saying they need to improve in that area?
that isn't showing that level of want to get better, or maybe just hasn't quite yet learned what it takes to get better and is in that space. What's your for guys that do it at a high level, that can be one of the hardest things, is to see someone not working to their fullest potential or putting as much time in the gym as is needed. Do you struggle with that? Is that something that you kind of focus on, is getting them in the gym?
A little bit. I think part of it is like what type of guys you bring in the program, right? Like we try to do our homework as much as possible. I think naturally I am drawn to guys that play as if they spend a lot of time in the gym, that it means a lot to them. But obviously you always get guys that you got to fill a team. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so one of the biggest things to me, and you said it before, is I can't want it for a player. So I think you try to have to get it on his terms as much as you possibly can, which is, what are your goals? Call him in, like, what are your goals? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Okay, well, like there's a gap between what you want to be and where you are right now. Well, like, how do you fill the gap? Here are, like, let's get you organized with your time. Like how can we schedule out so that you, right now, if you're putting a 5 out of 10 in, how do we get you to 6.5, to slowly but surely. And then I think, if you do a good job recruiting, there's always going to be guys in the program that really are hungry for it and that really thirst for it. And when you can expose, specifically like young guys, transfers are a little bit different after they've already been in the college basketball for a while, but when you can expose them to someone that, one of the most powerful things for me when I was at Chico is Jake Lovasolo, who never went to the games, like as much as he wanted, every day was shooting right next to me. You know what I mean? So like I got to play a lot and he barely got to play. He was getting, essentially 4.0s. And to see that, I was like, okay, well, like I can probably go a little more. And so I think like that's part of our goal, is for guys that are not doing that, you need to communicate with them, like what the expectation level is. And some guys just are not going to do that, right? And I think like as a coach, it is hard, but then are you pulling in our direction, right? Like like you're not a guy who's going to spend a ton of extra time in the gym, all good. Like when it's go time, are you on our page to try to help us win? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're all trying to do, So I think like those are ways it goes. And then like, you got to be able to sleep at night, like if a guy doesn't want it, you can't want it for, if everybody wanted it really bad, we probably would not be having this conversation, because that was my separator,
Absolutely. Like you said, Coach Clink pointed out, I mean, you wanted to win as bad as he did. And that, that is a separator, right? Competitiveness, some of the intangibles of work ethic. You mentioned Jake. That to me is one of the most important things as a coach, is to help support, frame, and prop up those that are putting in the work, that don't see the same level of results. And I think I always appreciated that, because it's a perspective enhancer for those that are playing. When you have a Jake sitting there next to you shooting and putting in the same work, it also helps to create a sense of gratitude for where you are, and an added hunger that you are getting the minutes, you are playing, and here's somebody who's putting that same work in. So I think those guys on programs like Coach Clink's mentioned it several times. We talked, including those individuals, and finding ways to really build their confidence and highlight them is a huge part of how you build a culture and a work ethic in a program. That's huge. Well, it's awesome to hear how how you haven't changed in so many ways, and all the ways that have made you successful, my friend.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And love to hear how things are going there. Let me wrap with a couple questions on what do you aspire, over the next 5 to 10 years. I assume that your ambition is at some point to take a program of your own and build that out. But what's the, kind of on the horizon for you as far as your personal growth goals and career goals down the road?
That's always a dream of mine right now. The reason I've been in Montana for so long is I work for and with awesome people out here. Life changes when you become a dad, right? Like the amount of time that I can spend on my profession with how I want to parent has decreased. And so if an opportunity were to come up where I could have my own program, I definitely would be excited about it, but it's got to make sense for my family more than anything. You know, to me, the single most important job that I have is being a dad to my 2 kids and the life that I have been able to build here. And it's really cool to have Coach Cobb. His kids are about my kids' age, and we can be a part of a high-level basketball program and still be present as fathers and husbands. So with that being said, like, yes, would I love to be a head coach? I would love that for sure. Not at the expense of trying to just climb the ladder. Like my main goal is not climb the ladder. My main goal is to, you know, like if you say what defines success is be able to impact players like I was impacted by you and the staff, as well as, you know, I don't ever want my kids to say that their dad was not around, right? And so with that being said, there may be opportunity that arises, you know, like I keep my eyes open, I keep my ears open, but at the same time, like with Travis DeCure, our head coach here, and Coach Cobb being here, I have created like a fantastic life. And I think that the thing I don't want to do is look back and say, oh man, like I had it like unbelievable there. And to chase something that at the end of the day is so fleeting, you know what I mean? Like being a head coach is so hard. There are so many people that want to be a head coach at Division 1, 2, 3, and then to take it one step further, that I think all the time, like there's hundreds of thousands of people that want the job that I have right now, right? And so I got to coach my son's T-ball team. Like that's how awesome this spot is for me, and that means a lot to me. So to answer your question, I don't know exactly the next 5 to 10 years. I hope it includes a few more championships, but we'll see kind of how it unfolds, and hopefully one day I get to run my own program. But if not, then maybe it's not meant to be.
Well, you got the priorities right. The youngsters are they don't stop growing while we're off working. They keep at that whole growing up thing, and awesome to get a chance to connect with you, man. And really appreciate you making some time to come and join the show and visit with me, man. Good to see your smiling face, and yeah, I can tell you've been coaching because the hairline is affected by the
hairline and the voice. You asked me, I have camp voice right now, running camp, but I will say this: I really appreciate you having me. I appreciate everything you've done for me. You know, it's an interesting story, like how our lives are intertwined. From me watching you at Jesuit, and then you know, following you from afar, and you were a player, and then, you know, my senior year, kind of one of the best years of my life. Like you were a big part of it. So I appreciate you, and thanks so much for your time.
Appreciate it, bud.